Today we have the honor to have Misha Komorav on our podcast. She was on the core team of Lido Protocol, which has 15 billion in TVL. It's the biggest and the most successful staking protocol, liquid staking on Ethereum. She also co-founded Neo Foundation, which is a ZK research started in 2017. She's one of the top cryptographers in the space and someone I personally respect a lot. A little bit more about Suki.Chat. So what Suki.Chat is, we will invite the top people in the tech industry to talk about how they started their companies, how's it going, and what are the key decisions that make the company successful. Also that, I'll also talk about my personal journey. I was previously at hedge funds and VCs, and now I'm starting my own company and been running that for about a year. So if you're watching this video and interested in working with me, please reach out to me on Twitter, or you can reach out to me on DM Cash, actually. Why don't you just do that? Send me whatever soul you feel appropriate to get my attention. That's the whole new product we're building right now. Cool. Let's do it. Hi everyone, welcome to a new episode of Suki.Chat. Today we have on our podcast is Misha Komorav, who is previously on the founding team of Lido Finance, which is one of the biggest Ethereum staking protocols, also the co-founder of Neo Foundation, and he's starting something new. Misha, we'd love to hear more about you, and if you don't mind giving us an introduction.
Sure. Let's go for it, I guess. Should we start right away from 2013? Actually, I just did a lot of stuff since 2013 in crypto. I was involved quite a lot in BitMessage. I implemented a CPP implementation of BitMessage protocol back in the day. So after that, I was involved in a lot of stuff around Timid, BitShares, a little bit around EOS. Then we went for NIL. It was this initial custodian design for Lido we had to basically invent a signature scheme for. Until the merge happened, all the deposits, etc., were held in Lido in the custodian we designed back in the day. All the initial TDL, etc., until merge happened, until it became possible to deposit directly in the Beacon chain deposits. Nil Foundation is also something we did together with Quasi back in the day. Its purpose was to, and it is actually still, to try to get Ethereum back to its original map, effectively to its original scaling design, stating that the roll-up-centric roadmap was not a mistake, but just a very suboptimal path towards making it function properly. And I'm happy to see that Ethereum gets back to its root. It gets back to the original roadmap, more or less, at this point. We are working on this little alloc init thing. It's like a Bitcoin research and development firm, and we're trying to apply tricks nobody applied before to Bitcoin to achieve more expressivity, to allow people to do more on Bitcoin. Yeah.
That's awesome. Misha is one of the most OG people I know in crypto for sure. Sounds like you started with like the Bitcoin ecosystem first and then move on to Ethereum. So curious about what are the problems you experienced when you were building in the Bitcoin ecosystem, and what was the decision making process like when you decided to go to Ethereum?
Okay, well, let's start challenges to Bitcoin ecosystem in general. At first, it was just fun. Basically, just people building L1s to list tokens on exchanges, and that's it. And BitMessage was just one of those things which wasn't really about building a new L1 to list tokens on exchanges. It was a pretty interesting application of what can you do with these systems, with these protocols, like besides just launching tokens. But the reason why, I guess, everybody went to Ethereum at some point in time is because there was this competition between different alt L1s, and people were launching L1 for each single purpose back in the day. They just threw a small, and every single one of them had good chances to thrive. Some of them still are around. Litecoin is still around.
It's amazing how Litecoin has survived through so many cycles.
Yeah.
It's a very tweetable meme coin.
Especially after they turned their official Twitter account into effectively a shitposting account. So
that sounds a pretty smart move.
These things from pre-ICO era, from 2013, 2014 era, are still around. Before we went and focused on Ethereum, there was a lot of hopes which were put on everything what Dan was doing, Dan Larimer, all that stuff. Once Bitcoin block size wars were lost, I mean, quite a lot of people lost the hopes about Bitcoin in general. That led to mass exodus of people to Ethereum, exactly because the block size wars were resolved into this narrative of digital gold in comparison to digital cash thing. So
Interesting. What was the timeline? So you first worked on Neo or Lido?
I mean, it's like nil was the first thing. It was started in April of 2018. So at this point, almost 7 years old actually. Yeah. And Lido was effectively one of those things we collaborated on because I mean somebody had to build the signature scheme, somebody had to build the custodian, somebody had to build that like the initial protocol implementation, and among those people who were working on this, it was us. It's like autumn of 2020, like October 2020. It was called D-Pool back in the day.
How did you get the idea? You mentioned it was started as something else. Could you tell us more about it?
Yeah, to be completely precise, like the idea definitely wasn't mine. Back in the day, I first heard about this idea of shared staking pool because of old Telegram open network experiments. There was like a contest or something which Pasha put up, and somebody implemented this shared staking pool. I know there were ideas to implement the same mechanism of shared staking pools for Ethereum back in the day, even earlier than that. I mean, like 2018 or 2019, there was like some incubation by one of the funds I know, which was exactly about that. But back in the day, it was just too early. So yeah, the idea was definitely not novel. It was just about like being in the right place in the right time, and folks executed it flawlessly. The first time I heard about proof of stake was back in BitShares. It was effectively one of those first things which pushed this idea forward. And in Stimit already, people had some kind of, which was called like delegated proof of stake or something. It involved some delegation to people who were actually validators, like node operators. And that was like 2016 era.
I always find proof of stake is a very interesting concept that Ethereum first was able to implement. And the reason is there are people with Ethereum. And then a lot of them could be early adopters. A lot of institutions could be like a lot of Ethereum whales. And a lot of these people don't necessarily have the compute capacities or the facilities to run the Ethereum nodes. Because to run like staking nodes for like a blockchain, you need to have the devices, you need to have the compute, and you need to have the setup and the electricity, like which a lot of people who has Ethereum doesn't necessarily want to do that. So I think the problem that Lido is solving in this case is actually really, really big. I actually had this idea in 2022 actually to build a one-click validator platform, which for people having like compute or cloud or storage, just like getting them to like do like one click and then they can like run like the nodes, and then for people to like pick these independent people to like stake their Ethereum with, so making the market even more liquid and efficient. And like somewhere down the road of that idea, I basically ran into the problem of like, oh, holy crap, like the biggest like staking companies were like Blockdaemon, Coinbase Prime, which are the institutions of the world. And also like Lido.
CDP validator.
Lido, Rocket Pool. I was like, oh damn, like I have to compete with these people for minimizing downtime, optimize like the cost of like running nodes to turn into this infrastructure company, which will ultimately be like more or less like centralized like Horse One or like all these centralized companies. So my question here is like, how does Lido stay like decentralized while being very effective? Did you guys like do the early days of like creating the network effect of like finding those who are the people that's like validating the nodes? Like, do you guys do that centralized manner, or do you just like fully make a decentralized network that way?
I mean, first of all, it is more like a middleware. It doesn't stake or like it doesn't operate the nodes itself. It's just a middleware which coordinates these operators which you mentioned. I mean, there was not that many operators. Like right now, it's like 100 plus operators, like 100 plus different companies which like participate that. Recently, folks have launched this community staking module, which basically allows like home stakers to just get up and running their node and like participate as an operator instead of going through all of the approval process and all the all the nuances, that thing. So that's the thing. So yeah, I mean, it's a middleware. I mean, it's effectively a middleware. That's the whole thing about it. It's like you just don't host one large validator like Coinbase does or like Binance does or something, because if there wasn't Lido out there, I bet that the whole Ethereum would have been validated by just several large entities which are completely centralized and which have literally just one operator and one node, of course, a bunch of nodes or something. I mean, this could have been this way. Like with Lido, it's basically an aggregator, like a middleware kind of like recently, which also became permissionless, like fully permissionless, which allows independent staking companies, independent professional stakers to join, to contribute their uptime, to contribute to contribute their facilities, to make sure there are game theoretic kind of independency and incentives between these different operators. So, and this makes it sufficiently decentralized in comparison to what it could have been without. Without Lido being on the scene. So that's what it is.
Gotcha. Now let's maybe shift a bit more towards Nil and the new company you're building as well. So, what exactly is Nil? And yeah.
So okay, so what's Nil? So
Oh,
like,
I know, but I want you to like.
yeah. Let's go for it. All right. So Nil initially was started as like again April 2018 or something. It was started as like a cryptography research and development entity, effectively, which we tried to understand. It's like we tried to understand how much further can we push to reduce trust assumptions in these decentralized systems in general. And for that, we were like, yeah, makes sense. It's like let's try to arrange a proof system for that, because there was literally not that many of them, and it was a really underdeveloped space back in the day. We came to the idea that we need a proof system specifically for that. We tried to make it easy for people to reduce these trust implications, like trust assumptions from this industry, by introducing effectively a zk-LVM circuit compiler. Then having this experience with basically having this experience from working with a lot of Filecoin miners back in the day, we realized that people not only have these issues with defining effectively proof system circuits to be able to scale up Ethereum, because not everything can be fit into a shard, not everything can be fit into state transition machine. Unfortunately, some things with smaller granularity should be proven. So that's how we went to this idea that, hey, people are having issues with generating these things, which are pretty heavyweight, and that's why we introduced proof market. I guess it was maybe the first secondary proof market, as they call it these days. I mean, quite a lot of companies build it these days as well, but the beginning of 2023 was that thing. Out of the circuit compiler, out of the proof system, etc., back in the day in 2021 as well, we exactly following this idea of trying to reduce trust assumptions and to try to bring people, all together to Ethereum from all the different L1s, exactly because of the reason I outlined earlier. A lot of good projects in 2016, 2017 era just fell apart because they were independent L1. They hadn't had network effect. So the best candidate back in the day to bring everything, all the attention to, was Ethereum. So we took on that. And in 2021, because of that, to make these trust assumptions of people effectively bringing their attention and bringing their projects to Ethereum, we brought in the concept of ZK bridging. It's it was Evan Shapiro, Isaac Meckler, Ethereum Foundation people like Justin Drake, and we took on implementing that back in the day. That was the thing. Same thing we did with Solana Foundation also. So, and after that, when we finally matured well enough, we were like, okay, cool. It's like we have all the stack, we have all the tech, we have everything, and like Ethereum is still there. Ethereum is okay and like doing well. So let's try to make it work. Let's try to make it work, not only in terms of bringing different projects to Ethereum, but also about enhancing Ethereum itself. And that's how this idea of ZK sharding was born. And it was like there is a kind of product development, product strategy development on the side, even like now at this point, like a continuation and evolution of that. So you'll see something new, I guess, in a couple of months about that. I mean, might be interesting. So yeah, I mean,
honestly, Neil was like so early working on ZK proofs before anyone realized that ZK is a thing. Would it be fair to say that like you were one of the earliest people in crypto to have like realized that ZK proofs is one of the reasons like why blockchain is unique compared to other technologies?
I mean, it's like, look, it's like ZK proofs as a tech. It's in general, it's in general evolved in terms of how people understand it, how people view it from this Zcash era approach, when effectively Sean Bowie, like Zuko, like Ali, and at this point, I guess legendary, as like all of them are legendary people, considered that as the way to bring privacy to what it became now, thanks to effectively all that ZK rollup boom of like 2022, 2023, well, maybe even 2024 a little bit. It became more seen, it became more considered as like a scaling thing more than a privacy thing because of that compression property it has, which turned out to be more valuable actually than privacy. Like there are more interesting, more flexible, more suitable things for privacy now, which are getting more and more developed. Like all the lattice-based cryptography, like these like witness encryption functional schemes, FHE stuff, yada yada, all that stuff. So it's more suitable for privacy now. It's like ZKPs and like ZK proofs are in general right now being considered as like the way to compress data, to scale up the performance, to scale up the throughput. So that's, I guess, kind of the understanding, the evolution of understanding, which kind of the whole ZK crowd went through.
Yeah, it's definitely super early. I remember like I think even in like 2023 or 2022, even like 2024, I remember like ZK Proof still takes like 7 minutes to process, and that is fine like for like theoretical like things. But I feel like if we're using ZK in any kind of real applications, it'd be like difficult to kind of still like use. What do you think like ZK is heading? Like, do you think are you bullish, bearish?
Okay, so I got 2 points about this. Like the first point is that it all depends. Like, see, this is like kind of a little bit Ethereum centric mindset that it has to be as fast as possible. Why? Because the replication interval and effectively this granularity interval, like on Ethereum, is like what, 14 seconds or something like this, right? So theoretically, and like in perfect case for Ethereum based applications, you got to make this kind of cycle of ZK VM or like whatever you're proving to fit within these 14 seconds, right? Because of the protocol being designed this way. So that's kind of the perception. But there is also this nuance that it's not always that way. It's like for some protocols, for example, for Bitcoin, where replication interval is like usually about 10 minutes, it doesn't need to be that fast. It's okay. In there, like with this kind of assumption, you can do much more fun stuff actually, because you're not bounded by this, kind of let's make it as fast as possible assumption anymore. So, like answering your question, if I'm bullish or bearish, I'm definitely bullish. There's so much stuff you can do about it. It's all about actually, of course, like the product. What do you do with that? What's the value to the users? What's the value to like anybody? In fact, is it like more than just a fun research thing? Because I do remember like in 2013, we have basically released some kind of like early demo of Doom speedrun compiled by a circuit compiler. And there was basically kind of this idea that people can play Doom. It's like, and their speedrun would have been recorded effectively and like proven to Ethereum or like to whatever cluster there is that they have ran through the game at this particular time. So and it's like this is fun, but this is like very stupid, to be honest. This is absolutely useless. So it's all about like, you know, putting this thing to serve the users and not to be just a fun experiment. So I'm bullish. Sure. It's like there is quite a lot of stuff one can do with this, not only on Ethereum. Recently, kind of on Solana, there is also like this support of like curve operations which enable the verification of CKPs. Like finally, we fought for this like several years, and it's there. So on Bitcoin as well, once you relax these assumptions about several seconds proving time, it becomes much more interesting on what can you do with Bitcoin given how limited it is. So, and given that there is actually not that many things you can do natively, so you got to do stuff through ZKPs. So yeah, exciting stuff.
Awesome. That's very fascinating. I think like when people talk about ZK, it comes into like two forms. Like one is the ZK proofs, and one is the scaling solution. There's the and just want to make sure that like those two things are different. Maybe let's move on to talk more about what are you working on now? Tell us more.
Okay, let's go for it. So I guess what's going on right now is it's basically this thing we call alloc init. Yeah, it's like all the names I give are are this way for some reason, but yeah, it's basically about trying to enable Bitcoin to do a little bit more for the sake of being able to convert that attention which has been given to Bitcoin like over the last couple of years, I guess, like specifically and exclusively to Bitcoin, I gotta say, over the last couple of years, into something more than just attention in terms of like buy and hold. So, I mean, it's like I don't think anybody would object if one could do a little bit more with Bitcoin, right? So, and for this, basically, we're trying to apply all the provable stack we've built over the years, like in nil, which over the years, because of nil specifics, was very Ethereum centric, and we're trying to kind of apply that stack and like port that stack along with everything which we have built like for Ethereum, I guess, over the years to Bitcoin to make it work in there. That involves a lot of Bitcoin specifics, of course. That is, we got to think about how do you verify ZKPs in Bitcoin in general. For this, we kind of introduced this idea about Bitcoin pipes, which we're kind of exploring right now. So, yeah, I mean, that's, I guess, what it is. It's Bitcoin cryptography research and development. It's a cryptography research and development firm, and we're trying to apply it to Bitcoin. Let's say it this way. So that's what it is.
Gotcha. So there's like different protocols that you guys will be building under the Bitcoin research firm, or would it be like mostly focused on like one area? Because you mentioned that like the purpose of it seems like it's a full circle. You start with Bitcoins and also
yeah,
Bitcoin.
exactly.
Do you feel like the Bitcoin ecosystem has changed at all after like 12 years?
Actually, yes. It's like the majority of what's going on with Bitcoin right now is like became possible thanks to Taproot upgrade. So that was a hard thing to push through. I do remember these wars about trying to push Taproot. And I mean, I know that not everybody supports that, but it is what it is. It's with us now. So, and because of that, because of what was brought with the Taproot upgrade, because of the Schnorr signatures, because of these, kind of misusage of up return, like opcodes, or like this way to embed things into TapScript, misinterpret certain things as bytes, whatever. So this also brought quite a lot of, this opened and like maybe shifted the overtone window in terms of what's acceptable to build on Bitcoin, what will be accepted not only from like technical perspective, what's possible from technical perspective, but what will be accepted by the community in general. So yeah, I mean, it definitely feels like there are things to do now, and like given all the kind of given all the development of like provable stacks and everything we kind of got developed because of Ethereum scaling needs over the years, like all of that advanced, the whole field quite a lot, and bringing that back, combining effectively with the upgrades which were brought, I guess, like since 2021. What was it, like 10th of 2021? So yeah, I mean, it changed a lot. I mean, yeah, I guess that's from a technical perspective. From the psychological perspective, it's pretty much the same. Like everybody's trying to agree with each other. Everybody wants to just see the number go up, but luckily it's not completely everybody that way. So yeah, it feels there are things to do in here now.
Awesome. Yeah, I think like the price is definitely like, I think like storage of values like, the kind of PMF for Bitcoin in many people's like, viewpoints.
Yeah.
And do you experience any kind of blockers when you talk to like Bitcoin holders? Because I've heard that, it's like really hard to get them to like send their Bitcoin to anywhere.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, it's like oh yeah, of course. I'm saying in regards to kind of it's hard to sell something to Bitcoin people. It's hard to get Bitcoin people to use something simply because of how old the ecosystem is. Okay, it's like all of these people which kind of started with Bitcoin and which are still with Bitcoin, they're very skeptical about all the stuff and all the bullshit which they went through this whole kind of crypto journey and whatever we've had at this point. What is it, like 15 years or whatever? So that's what it is. And I mean, yeah, it's like they're definitely much more skeptical than people within other ecosystems we kind of used to. And yeah, I actually like this because it means that nothing sketchy will go through. It means that nothing weird or like nothing which is which harmful to the ecosystem or like to the protocol itself will go through. So that's what it is. And there are certain upsides in this. Are we facing obstacles from Bitcoiners or like some kind of pushback from Bitcoiners? I wouldn't say so, because you in general face a pushback from Bitcoiners when you ask for the ecosystem or like for the protocol to change, which instantly sparkles up a debate about how elegant or like how long-term sustainable or like how safe a certain solution is. And given the the latest, I would say, stage of institutional adoption of Bitcoin in general, it's like if something goes south with Bitcoin these days, a couple of countries will go bankrupt. Okay, so this is not something we want. This is not something anybody wants, in fact, and that's why kind of Bitcoin becomes more and more resistant to change. Until that's why the best way forward is to just try to pull off things and try to make things work around Bitcoin without trying to make it change. Because yeah, it's like that's the kind of and that's what it is. I mean, we are kind of standing on that position that actually we can let Bitcoin ossify at this point, basically because any change right now is too risky to be made. So I guess this kind of prevents us from going into any resistance because we're just good with Bitcoin as it is right now. It's okay. Taproot is all we need.
Nice. That's awesome. Do you like Bitcoin more or do you like Ethereum more?
Both protocols have very good reasons for existence. It's not like I like something more. It's like I understand both cultures pretty well because I've been in both of them like for I don't know how many years, like God knows how many years. So yeah, like, and I do understand the mentality behind both of the kind of, you know, both of the both of the communities. I would say pretty well. They're just different. They're just different. You know, somebody it's like somebody said, and there's some very particular said on Twitter, some very particular person on Twitter said it was like Walt or whatever. So Walt, if you hear this, yeah, like here goes your credit. That kind of Bitcoin culture and like values right now is like the incarnation of like it's like digital South, you know, talking in terms of like US South, and I guess maybe Ethereum values are more like digital North, if you want to call it that way. So these are just different. It's not like what I like more. It's just two different, two different approaches, two different, yeah, something like this.
I have another question requested by some builders and founders I know. They're curious, you know, what is a how if someone wants to build a protocol, how should they start? Like, do you have advice for people starting crypto projects, protocols, products? How do they decide? And how do one, start building a protocol?
Okay, so I mean, you know, it's also like first of all, it's like there are two eternal problems in crypto. I know, okay, like everybody knows that it's expensive Ethereum and like Bitcoin design choices. Okay, so so a lot of people are not happy with Bitcoin design choices. I mean, it's okay. Not everybody should be happy with everything, but in the same time, like a lot of people are not happy with like you know, Ethereum fees and Ethereum scaling design and yada yada. So if you want to go for something, like, you know, go for eternal topics at first. These are two eternal topics. Like once you get it, it's like once you get it that you know, I don't know, it's all about just estimating what kind of like what kind of, you know, it's like the product of what kind of scale can you pull off, or like you think you can pull off, or like you think you can make work, make something work. So it's that thing, because certain protocols, certain approaches, certain products definitely require, I mean, I don't know, like just basically bring up like 100 people strong team or something and to turn it into a corporation. Like, for example, yeah, like Lido is like what? Well, about 100 people at this point, I guess. I mean, a little bit less actually, but yeah, it's like from what I know, kind of last data point of mine. Like same like with whatever, like all the other things I've been on the inside of. They're not, you know, they're not small because of the products, because of what kind of product you want to pull off. It's like because of what kind of product we want to pull off with it. But it's also, you know, there are projects effectively which can be, you know, can be very successful, I guess, even if you make them with like just whatever, a couple of dozen people, or maybe like with just a dozen people or something like this. Like, it's just